Chapter 4 Baked Birds. The next day, Abram and Itzek went to hunt birds with a slingshot. They returned at noon with a slew of birds tied by the feet and slung over their shoulders. The biggest of them was the size of a chicken. Abram said it was called a woodcock. Shurlik was disappointed to be told that he would have to wait until evening for the birds to be cooked and eaten. Why? He asked. Because the smoke from the fire could be seen. When it grew dark, they built a low wall of branches around the site of the fire to keep the flames from being seen. Shalemi and Avram cleaned the birds, cutting off their heads with Yosele's pocket knife and a piece of jagged glass. Mud was brought from the stream bank, and each bird was coated with it. When the fire had burned down to hot coals, the mud-coated birds were put in to bake while they all waited. "Give me my knife," Yosele said to Shalemi. Shalemi stuck it in his pocket. "It's mine now," he said. "Let him have it," Shurlik said. Shalemi gave Shurlik a push. The boys all jumped to their feet. Avram took command, and Shalemi returned the knife grudgingly. They took the smaller mud birds from the fire first. The bigger ones had to bake a while longer. The mud had hardened and turned to clay. They rolled it on the ground to cool it and then cracked it with stones and peeled it off. The feathers came with it, leaving the birds ready to eat. When they went to sleep that night, Shurlik and Yosele lay down side by side as usual. Shurlik was still mad at being pushed by Shalemi. "Shalemi was king around here until Avram came along," Yosele told him. "Is Avram stronger?" "I don't know, but he never gets lost in the forest." "Boy, that was good," Shurlik said, licking his lips. "When will they hunt some more?" "Not for a while." "Why not?" "Avram's afraid the fire will give us away." Shurlik sighed with disappointment. "Too bad," he said. "You know," Yosele told him, "in the beginning, when I was all by myself, I was so hungry that I ate everything. I even ate snails. They're disgusting, but I didn't bite into them. I just swallowed them as fast as I could." "I could never do that," Shurlik said disgustedly. "When you're hungry enough, you can do anything. Once I found a rabbit in a trap. I didn't have this knife, so I cut it up with a piece of glass, and I didn't have any matches, so I ate it raw." "You didn't die from it?" "You can see that I didn't." In the morning, Shurlik awoke with a start. What he had heard wasn't a dream. It was real. There were shots coming from nearby and echoing all around them. Then there were shouts and orders being given in German. He jumped up and ran as fast as he could in the opposite direction. After a while, there was no longer anything around him but silence. He stopped. He didn't know where he was. He tried remembering what he had been told about moss growing only on one side of the trees, but he had no idea how it might help him to find the other boys. All he could think of doing was to shout, "Yusele! Avram!" His own voice echoing through the forest scared him. Someone was coming. Shurlik hid. It was Shalemi. He jumped from his hiding place, happy to see him. "Shout like that again and we'll be caught for sure," Shalemi said. "I knew you couldn't be trusted." "Where is everyone?" Shurlik asked worriedly. "Instead of hiding, they all ran off like dopes." "You also ran off like a dope," Shurlik said. "You'd better watch it," Shalemi said. "There's no one here but the two of us." Shurlik said nothing. After a while, he asked, "Where do we go now?" "I want to find this stream," Shalemi said. "Can't you? That's enough out of you." Suddenly, Shalemi stopped in his tracks. Someone was lying between two trees. It was a grown man. They tensed, ready to turn and run. But the man didn't move. His head lay in a puddle of congealed blood. "He's dead," Shurlik whispered. The dead man's arm extended forward. Something lay by his hand. Shalemi bent to look at it. It was a pair of glasses. He knelt by the man's side. "Let's go," Shurlik said. "You go," said Shalemi. Shurlik walked away, feeling sick. He sat on the ground and watched as Shalemi went through the dead man's pants pockets and pulled papers and objects out of them. Then he turned the man on his back and stuck his hand in the man's jacket pocket. Finished, he straightened up. "Shurlik," he called softly. He doesn't see me, Shurlik thought. He didn't answer or budge. Shalemi called again. There was no response. He began to look for Shirlik, carefully poking at the undergrowth, but he was walking the wrong way. Something in Shirlik wanted to run after him. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. It was better to be alone than with Shalemi. Toward evening, the sky clouded over and cast its pall over the forest. Shirlik decided to sleep in a tree. He climbed a big oak and found a comfortable spot in the cleft of two big branches. Yet he couldn't fall asleep. Would he find the other boys? And how would he manage in the forest if he didn't? He reached for his butterfly pin, but the butterfly pin had spent too much time in his pocket and hardly glowed. In the morning, he decided to look for poles, the good ones. They gave you food when you knocked on their door. He walked for a long time. He was thirsty. When he came to a puddle of rainwater, he bent down to drink. Little bugs were crawling in it. He shut his eyes and drank anyway. Suddenly, he found himself in a familiar place. He looked around him. There was the tree with the hollow trunk. He felt as happy as if he'd come from a long journey. He ran to drink from the brook and poked through the ashes of the fire until he found a little bird cased in mud. Cased in mud. There was still some vegetables and eggs in the tree trunk. He decided to stay put and wait. He slept in the tree that night, too. The next morning, he performed an experiment, walking carefully away from the brook while he watched the moss on the trees. Then he stopped and walked back the other way. Now he understood how to tell directions from the moss. He left the brook again, stopping to look back now and then. From time to time, he halted to pick berries. A snail was crawling on a bush, and its two horns groping in front of it. No, that was one thing he would never eat. He reached a blackberry bush, turned around, and managed to find his way back. He wished Yosele were there to tell about it. Slipping down from his tree to the ground on the morning of the third day, Shirlik knew he had lost the boys for good. He drank from the brook, ate the last two eggs in the tree trunk, and walked off without turning back. His eyes strained to make out a patch of clear light that would tell him where the forest ended, but he saw none, and in the end he grew tired and sat helplessly on the ground. Someone was coming. He crawled into a bush to hide. From it he saw a man in an official-looking cap and green jacket walking toward him with a rifle on his shoulder. It must be the forester who turns Jews over to the Germans, he thought. Perhaps the man was on his way home. Did foresters live in forests or villages? Shirlik decided to follow him. The forester walked along a narrow path for a while. Eventually, Shirlik spied some light between the trees. He waited until the forester was gone and stepped back out into the world. The path grew wider, winding through the fields until it reached a village. Shirlik knocked on the door of the first house he came to. A woman opened it. He looked at her without a word. She looked at him. "Come on in," she said after a while. She asked no questions, just as Yoseli had said. It was as if she knew exactly who he was. She sat him at a table and gave him a big slice of bread and a glass of milk. He wolfed it all down. He couldn't remember when he had last seen bread and fresh bread and milk. A small child was playing in the corner with some pieces of wood. The woman sat beside the child with some food. She called him Yurik and fed him with a spoon. "Who's there?" a man's voice asked. "A boy," said the woman. Her husband entered the room and regarded Shirlik thoughtfully. "Would you like to stay and work on the farm?" he asked after a long silence. "Yes," Shirlik said. "Finish eating, and I'll give you something to do." Shirlik finished eating. The farmer returned wearing his coat and boots. He led Shirlik outside and took him to a storeroom full of differently sized colored bottles. "Arrange all the bottles on the shelves by size and color," he said. "Do a good job." Shirlik nodded. The farmer left. "I'm shutting the door so that no one bothers you," he said. Shirlik set to work. Suddenly, he heard a key turn in the lock. Alarmed, he went to the door and put his eye to the crack between the wooden planks. At first he saw nothing. Then he spied the farmer pushing a motorcycle. The man mounted it, started it up, and drove off. Shirlik tried to open the door. It was locked. He tried breaking it, but couldn't. Panicky, he ran around the room like an animal. An animal caught in a trap, screaming and knocking bottles off their shelves. Just a minute, I'll let you out. It was the woman standing outside. Shrulek calmed down. He heard banging noises. The woman smashed the lock with an axe and opened the door. Run, boy, she said. Run.